this tutorial, you are going to need 4 of these Sunburst Granny Squares, and I'm going to show you how to make those today. Each motif is about 7 inches wide. And to begin, you are going to chain 4, slip stitch into the very first stitch you made to form a ring. We're going to work inside the ring here, right there. So you're going to chain 3, and this will count as your first double crochet. And inside of that ring, we are going to make 15 more double crochet. And you'll notice here that I am crocheting over the top of my beginning tail, and I'm actually going to use that tail later to cinch the middle hole a little bit smaller. If you would like to make the magic ring, you're more than welcome to use the magic ring. I just don't prefer to use it. When you get to the end of this round, you should have 16 double crochet total. And you will slip stitch into the 3rd stitch of your beginning chain to join this round. And then you're just going to pull that tail like I mentioned in the center and just make that a little bit smaller. You'll need to cut your yarn and change your colors at this point, and I do go ahead and weave in my tails as I go, so I don't have a bunch to weave in at the end. Now for round 2, we are going to join our new color in the spaces between the double crochet. So this is where we're going to be working instead of the top of the stitch for this round. So join in any space, and we're going to chain 1 and puff stitch into that same space we joined in. A puff stitch is simply yarn over, insert your hook into the space and pull up a loop. And you're going to do that 3 times. Yarn over, insert your hook into the space and draw up a loop. Yarn over, insert your hook, draw up a loop. And you should have 5 loops on your hook. So you're going to just yarn over and draw through all 5 loops, and you're just going to chain 1 to secure that puff. And you're just going to repeat this in every space around. So that's yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop 3 times. And then you're going to yarn over and draw through all loops on your hook and chain 1. So just continue doing that all the way around, making a puff stitch in each space, and make sure you don't forget to chain 1 in between each puff. At the end of this round, you're just simply going to slip stitch into your first puff, and I would take a moment to make sure you have 16 puffs, and you're going to cut your yarn and change your color and weave in your tails. Now we are going to join round 3 in any space between these puffs, and you're going to start off by chaining 2, and this will count as a double crochet. Now we're just going to make the rest of our cluster here, so that's yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop. Yarn over, draw through only 2 loops on your hook. Essentially, you are starting and halfway completing double crochet. So you're starting the double crochet process, but you are not finishing it. And you're going to do that until you have 4 incomplete double crochet, like you see here. And then you're just going to yarn over and draw through all loops. And in between each cluster, we're going to chain 2. Now we're going to make a full cluster. So that's yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops, and you're going to do that 4 times. So essentially 4 halfway completed double crochet. Once you have that, you're going to yarn over and draw through all 5 loops on your hook. And then chain 2. So essentially you're just going to repeat that all the way around. You're going to make a cluster and then chain 2 between each cluster in each space. So just repeat doing that all the way around. And when you get to the end, you should have 16 clusters and 16 chain 2 spaces. Now you're just going to slip stitch into your first cluster to join and cut your yarn and weave in your tails, and we're going to change colors again. Now for round 4, we're going to work in these chain 2 spaces here. And this is going to take our circle shape into that of a square, so be sure to pay attention. Join in any chain 2 space and chain 5. This beginning chain 5 will count as our first treble stitch plus our chain 1 space. In that same space, you're going to make 3 more treble crochet. Now we're going to work 3 double crochet in each of the next 3 spaces. So in the next 3 spaces, you're going to put what is often called a granny cluster. A granny cluster is simply a grouping of 3 double crochet. So you're going to put 3 double crochet in the next 3 spaces. And once you have your 3, this is what your piece should be looking like. Now we're going to make a corner stitch. And you're going to need to do that by making 3 treble crochet, followed by a chain 1 space, and then 3 more treble crochet, all in the same space. And doing that increase will create our corner. So there's my 3 treble. You're just going to chain 1 and make 3 more in that same space. Once you have your corner done, this is what it should look like. 3 treble, a chain 1, and 3 more treble. Now we're going to move along to this next side, and we're going to make a granny cluster in the next 3 spaces. And again, that's just a grouping of 3 double crochet. And this is what it should be looking like so far. After that, we're going to make another corner, and if you remember, that is 3 treble crochet, followed by a chain 1 space, and then 3 more treble crochet, all in the same space. So there's my 3 treble. I'm going to chain 1 and make 3 more treble, all in the same space. And this is what it should be looking like. It should be taking the square shape. In the next 3 spaces, you're going to make your granny clusters. And of course, now that we have those 3, we're going to make another corner. Again, that's 3 treble, followed by a chain 1 space, and 3 more treble, all in the same space. And this is what it should be looking like. In our last 3 spaces, we're going to make granny clusters. Now here we are where we began, and we need to make 2 more treble crochet to complete our corner stitch here. So make 2 more treble in the same space where we began. And then you're just simply going to slip stitch into the 4th stitch of our beginning chain to join. Then you're going to cut your yarn, weave in your tails, and change color. Now for this last round, we are going to join in any chain 1 space of a corner, and then we're going to chain 4. This will count as our first double crochet and our chain 1 space. Now we are going to make 3 more double crochet in the same space. For this round, we are going to be working into the spaces between the granny clusters below. So just make sure that that is where you are placing your stitches. And we're just going to simply make a granny cluster in the next 4 spaces. Now here we are at that chain 1 space of our corner, and to keep the corner shape, we're going to have to increase again. Only this time we're going to make 3 doubles, a chain 1, and 3 more doubles in the chain space. So there's my 3 doubles. Now we're going to chain 1 and make 3 more right in that same space. And now we're going to make a granny cluster in the next 4 spaces until we get to our next corner chain space. Essentially, you're going to do a granny cluster in every space until you get to the corner chain spaces, where you will do a granny cluster, a chain 1, and another granny cluster, to put it in simple terminology for you. So there we are. We're at the next corner space. We're going to shape our corner, and that is simply 3 doubles, a chain 1, and 3 more doubles, all in the same chain space. So you're just going to continue in this manner all the way around. Every time you get to a corner chain space, you're going to make that increase, and you're just going to make a granny cluster in each space between the clusters below. And I'll meet you when you get to the beginning space we started at. So here we are at the beginning chain space where we started, and we're going to finish our corner. So I have 3 doubles, a chain 1, and another double. So we need to complete our corner by adding 2 more double crochet to this space. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd stitch of the beginning chain to join. Now this time you're going to leave yourself a bit of a longer tail because we're going to use it for sewing purposes. And then fasten off. You're going to want to weave in your tail there in the back, and once you have 4 of these motifs total, I'll meet you back here to show you how to join them. So here I have my 4 motifs, and I'm simply going to start here in the center, and then I'm going to sew this motif as shown, and then I'm going to come over to the other side and do the same thing and sew it to those sides. And that's going to make more of a bag shape. So we're going to start right here, and you're going to flip your motif so that the right sides are together, and we're going to use this long tail to sew them together. And then I like to have a more finished look. So this is the way I do it. You don't have to do it the same way. This is the way I join my motifs. Essentially, I go through the outer loops only. So here's the outer loop of this side and the outer loop of that side. And I'm simply making a whip stitch all the way across. So outer to outer. And make sure that your stitches are lined up because you really don't want it to be crooked. And there are a ton of ways that you can join motifs, but this is just the way that I like to do it because I think it leaves a nice ribbed edging, like you'll see right here. You can see the nice ribbed edging at the bottom, and I really like that. So you can do it however you want. Now I'm going to join this motif, these sides here, but what I wanted to show you is you really need to make sure that you're lining up your corner spaces so that there's no discrepancy. So go ahead and sew that, and this is what it should look like when you're done. And then of course we're just going to repeat that by sewing this other motif in the same fashion. And this is what it should look like once you're done sewing. And you're just going to flip it to where the wrong sides are on the inside. And now we're going to shape our bag even more. So we're going to join a new color in the corner chain space on either side. And now we're going to chain 4, and this will count as our first double crochet and chain 1 space. You're going to put 3 more double crochet in that same chain space. And then we're going to make a granny cluster in each of the next 5 spaces. Again, that's just 3 doubles. Now you should have reached the 2 chain spaces that are the corner stitches here of the 2 motifs that are side by side. We are going to decrease over these spaces. So that's yarn over, insert your hook and pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2 loops. And you're going to do that twice in this space, and then you're going to come over to the next space, leaving those on your hook, and just repeat that. So that's yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops, twice in that space as well. So you're going to yarn over and draw through all 5 loops. Now we're just going to keep working in the fashion that we were before. We're going to make our granny clusters in the next 5 spaces. Here we are at the chain spaces of 2 corners here. And we're going to decrease again. And to simplify it, this is essentially what we did when we made our clusters in round 3. So you're starting but not finishing 2 doubles, and then you're going to go to the next space and do the same thing. So you have 4 unfinished double crochet on your hook there. And you're just splitting that up between 2 spaces, and that's drawing it together, but still keeping that granny cluster appearance. I hope that makes sense. Now you're just going to make a granny cluster in each of the next 5 spaces. Now we have reached our chain 1 space of the corner, and I would like to keep the corner shape the same. So in order to do that, you're going to make 3 doubles, followed by a chain 1 space, and 3 more doubles, all in that same chain space, just as if we were doing another round of our motif. And that's what it should look like. Now we are simply going to keep going around our bag, and you're going to make a granny cluster in the next 5 spaces. Once you have done that, you should be at the corner spaces of the 2 motifs, and we're just simply going to decrease like we did before. So that's starting but not finishing 2 doubles in the first space, and then going to the next space and starting but not finishing 2 doubles. And then yarn over and draw through all loops. Now you're going to make a granny cluster in the next 5 spaces. Here we are at our chain spaces. We're going to decrease again, and that's simply starting but not finishing 2 doubles in the first space. Then moving to the next space and starting but not finishing 2 doubles. And then yarn over and draw through all loops. And then you're just going to make your granny clusters all the way until you reach the space where you began. Now here we are at the space where we began. We don't have our corner complete. We have 3 doubles, a chain 1, and another double, so we need 2 more doubles in our beginning chain space to finish off our corner. And now you're just going to slip stitch into the 3rd stitch of your beginning chain. And you're going to cut your yarn, weave in your tails, and change colors. Now we're going to keep shaping the bag because I want it to be more like a purse and less like a fanny pack. So we're just going to keep repeating the concept before, decreasing over our decreases below. So this is going to make a whole lot more sense here in a minute. It's going to feel very comfortable for you. So join in either corner in the chain space here, and you're going to chain 4, and this will count as a double crochet in a chain 1 space. And you're just going to make 3 doubles in that same space. And then you're going to do your granny cluster in the next 5 spaces. Now you should be at the area where we decrease. So you should have these 5 here, and then the spaces between the decreases. So you're just going to decrease, just like you did in the last round, over those 2 spaces. So we're not staggering our decreases, we're actually putting them right on top of each other. And that's what it should look like. Now we're going to make a granny cluster in the next 4 spaces. So in the center motif is where our decreasing is really happening. And now you should have a decrease, 4 clusters, and now we're going to do another decrease over these 2 spaces here. And again, your decreases should be directly over the top of the decreases below. Now we're just going to continue on. You're going to make a granny cluster in the next 5 spaces. And once you have those 5, you should be at the chain 1 space of the corner of that motif there. And we're going to keep that corner shape, so make your 3 doubles, followed by a chain 1 space and 3 more doubles, all in the same chain 1 space there. Now you're just going to follow the concept, making sure that you're decreasing over the areas that you decreased. And I'll meet you at the space where we began. So here we are at the space where we began. We need to finish our corner, so we need 2 more doubles in the same space. And we're just going to slip stitch into the 3rd stitch of our beginning chain to join. And you're going to cut your yarn, weave in your tails, and change colors. Now we're going to do one more round of decrease because, like I said, I like it to have a purse shape. So join in any chain 1 space of the corner, and we're going to chain 4. This will count as a double and a chain 1 space. And you're going to put 3 doubles into the same space. Now you're just going to put a granny cluster in the next 5 spaces, just like we did below. And once you have those 5 granny clusters, you're going to be over the decrease, and you're going to decrease just like you did before over those 2 spaces. Now you're going to make your granny cluster in the next 3 spaces. And that should bring you to our next decrease. So there's 3. Now we're over our decreases below, so we need to decrease again. And then you're simply going to make your cluster until you reach the next chain space of a corner. So that's 3 doubles, chain 1, and 3 more doubles in that corner stitch. You should see the pattern forming. That's why I'm not showing you every single step. I feel confident that you are grasping the concept. And then you're just going to continue in this manner on the other side. So you're going to make a granny cluster in all these spaces except for the areas where you decrease, making sure you decrease over the same spaces, and I'll meet you where we began. So here we are at the space where we began. We need to finish our corner, so you need 2 more doubles in that beginning space, and then you're just simply going to slip stitch in that 3rd stitch of your beginning chain to join. Cut your yarn and weave in your tails, and we are going to change colors yet again. So now we're done shaping our bag, and this is what it should look like, but we are going to add some rounds of single crochet. Join in either corner space, chain 1, and make a single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet, all in the same space. And then you're simply going to single crochet in every single stitch until you reach the next chain 1 space of your corner stitch on the opposite side of the bag. So you're just going to repeat making 1 single all the way to this other side into this corner stitch. Once you reach the corner stitch, you're going to make another single crochet, chain 2, and another single crochet in that same space. And then you're simply just going to make a single crochet in every stitch until you reach where we began. Once you reach where you begin, you're simply going to slip stitch in the very first single crochet that we made of the round. And cut your yarn, weave in your tails, and change colors one last time. For this last round, we're going to add our button loop, which will help close our bag, and you're going to count from a corner space 25 stitches and place your marker. And then you're going to join in that chain 2 space, chain 1, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in that same corner stitch there. So it should look like a corner. And then you're just going to single crochet till you reach the marker that we marked in our 25th stitch. Once you reach that marker, you're going to actually single crochet into the marked stitch and then remove your marker. Now we're going to chain 16 for our button loop. And I slip stitch to make the loop in a specific way, so just pay attention. It's through the front loop here and the front post there. And that just makes our loop look nice. Now you're just going to single crochet in every stitch until you reach the next corner chain 2 space. In that chain 2 space, you're going to make a single crochet, chain 2, single crochet in that same chain 2 space, and then you're just going to single crochet to the end where you started. When you reach the beginning stitch, you're simply going to slip stitch in our first single crochet, cut your yarn, and weave in your tails. Now you're going to want to add your button to the front. I usually sew it on pretty close to the top here. And once you sew it, that's what it should look like. Then we're going to add the tassel if you would like. I just use my fingers, or you can use a 4-inch width piece of cardboard. You're going to wrap it 25 times and then fold them in half. It does not have to be perfect. Put it into that button loop there and try to get it as straight as possible. And then you're going to cut a length of yarn of about like 6 inches or so. And you're just going to use the gathering knot to secure the tassel to the button loop. It does not have to be perfect because we're going to cut the tails later to make them straight. So just pull that tight. And then you're going to snip off that top thread there and then cut the bottoms evenly, just like that. You could treat the tassel tails with some fray check to make it last longer, which I do recommend. Now we're going to make our strap. To do that, you're going to chain 130, and note, this will stretch. So it's going to seem short, but it will stretch, I promise. Then in the 4th chain from your hook, you're going to make 2 double crochet. And that turning chain there will count as a double crochet. So when you're looking at it, it should look like 3 double crochet are sharing the same stitch. Now we're going to skip 2 stitches and make a granny cluster in the next stitch. Skip 2 stitches and make a granny cluster in the next stitch. Skip 2 stitches, make your granny cluster, and you're just going to keep repeating that all the way to the end. So there's your granny cluster, skip 2 stitches, granny cluster, skip 2 stitches. So just repeat that until you get to the last stitch. And once you reach the last stitch, I will meet you there. So here we are at the last stitch. You're going to make 3 doubles, of course, in the last stitch, because that's the way you should be ending. If you didn't, then you got off count somewhere. So there's my 3 doubles. Now I'm going to chain 2 and make 3 more doubles as if I was making a corner stitch. And that is because we are going to keep working across this same foundation chain, almost as if we were working in the round. So there's our corner stitch. Now we're going to keep working down this other side of the foundation chain, skipping the same 2 stitches and putting a granny cluster in the same stitch as the granny cluster on the opposite side. So every granny cluster should be sharing the same stitch. So you're skipping the same 2 stitches, and you should have a granny cluster on each side of the same stitch. So it should be looking like this. And you're just going to repeat that, making 3 doubles or granny cluster in the same stitches below. Once you get to that very first stitch where we started, you're of course going to put your last 3 doubles, and then we're going to chain 2 and slip stitch into the top of our beginning chain that we used to turn. Now you're going to cut your yarn and change colors. You can go ahead and weave that tail in as well. And this is what it should be looking like. You should have a corner on this end, and you should also have a corner on the opposite end. And what we're going to do is we're going to join our next color in the corner space. So in that chain 2 space on either end, it doesn't really matter. You're going to chain 1, and I made a mistake in the original video, so you're going to need to follow these instructions. You're going to make 2 singles followed by a chain 1 and 2 more singles in the chain space corner. And then once you do that, you are simply going to make a single crochet in every stitch until you reach the opposite side's chain 2 space. So just keep putting 1 single in every stitch across until you reach the chain 2 space on the opposite side. Once you meet that chain 2 space, you're going to make 2 singles, followed by a chain 1 and 2 more singles in that same chain 2 space. And then of course you're just simply going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch until you reach where we began. And because I messed up before, I'm just going to tell you, you will need to just join with a slip stitch in the first single crochet and fasten off. And then we are just going to set the strap aside for now because we're going to line it first. Now what I did was I folded the material in half, and then I set the bag on top where the fold is at the bottom, and then I just cut around the shape of the bag, leaving myself about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of seam allowance. And then of course you're going to need thread that matches your fabric, and I use hot glue to join the bags together. So you're going to sew with your sewing machine up these side seams right here, and I'll meet you back. Once you've done that, I'll show you. This is what it should be looking like so far. It should look like this. Now I'm going to snip the curve at the top, and the reason I'm showing you is because I didn't know this when I first started sewing. I'm not a sewer, I'm a crocheter. So I thought it might be helpful to show people that you need to make snips along the curve, and that is because you want it to keep this shape. And so you're going to just make little snips about every 2 inches or so, all the way around the top portion, just like that. And then as you sew, you're going to fold down like that. And then that will help us keep our shape of the bag. So you're going to start up here and fold it down and then sew, and then just keep sewing all the way down. And then you're just going to do that all the way around on both sides, of course, and I'll meet you back here. So this is what it should look like. Just like this, as you can see. Now what I like to do to join the liner to the bag is hot glue it. And the reason I use hot glue is because it's fast and easy and it holds very well. You simply cannot dry your piece or the dryer will melt the hot glue. So this is my process. You can sew it if you'd like with your sewing machine, but my sewing machine eats mine, so I don't use my sewing machine. So you're going to want to line up the corners, and we're going to line it up with that last round, just like I'm showing you. And I love these little clamps. I get them from Walmart, I think, or maybe Hobby Lobby. I'm not really sure, but I think I got these from Walmart. And essentially you're just lining it up and pinning it in place because it's going to make gluing so much easier. And of course, if you're sewing, it would also make sewing a lot easier. And I use stretchy fabric because it's so much more forgiving. I highly recommend using stretchy fabric. So now I'm just hot gluing this all the way around. You will notice that I start at either corner. That is important. And then I am not using but just a little bit of hot glue to secure this liner. You don't want to use too much or it'll come through to the front side and you don't want that. Once you have your liner in there, we're going to add our strap, and I'm just going to show you. I'm not going to actually sew it on camera, but this is how you're going to line it up. And you're just going to sew around that outer border right there. And your inner liner should hide your tails, so you should be fine there. And then of course you're going to repeat it to the other side. Once you have your strap on, you are done. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching.